Welcome to Body Efficiency Training. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the most powerful punch we can generate with our body. And this punch is the overhand cross. Now, why is it the most powerful punch? Well, the way I see it, there are 5 levels to this punch. And if we can get these 5 levels just right, we can get maximum efficiency and hence maximum power out of this punch. So I'm going to be talking through these and some of the exercises I do to build up to this punch. Now, if you look at some of the things we already do to generate maximum power in our arm, you can see the similarities to the overhand cross. And it's a very similar dynamics. The whole body's got to be involved and the whole body is used to throw out the arm. Now, of course, the only difference between these things and the overhand cross is I've got nothing in my hand. So what am I throwing? Well, I'm throwing the fist itself. I've got to use the whole body in the correct sequence to throw the fist. And I'm working on technique, and that is efficiency. Efficiency comes from perfecting technique. So I'm trying to do a single perfect punch. Now, of course, in reality, that's impossible. You're never going to do a perfect punch in combat. But here in training, we can try and perfect one single perfect punch. And in doing so, it would improve all our punches. Now, here I'm just doing a bit of warm-up, playing around with the bag. So here I'm doing random strikes, and you can see none of them are perfect, but I'm trying to get the very same body dynamics that I'm going to be talking about in this overhand cross for every little movement that I do. Now, in fact, there are 2 different types of striking, and this is important to understand. There's momentum-based striking, and that is where your body is loose, you're throwing out the hands and the feet and hitting with them loose. And then you have structure-based striking, and that's where you're holding your body in a stronger structure and pushing into the person, into your opponent with a strike. And that's like traditional martial arts, the traditional type of striking. And the best analogy is walking along in a park. If you're hit by a stray tennis ball flying in the air, that is a momentum-based strike. Or if you're walking along and you bump into a lamp post, there's a solid object in the ground, that's a bit like being hit with a structure-based strike. So here now I'm starting to do the warm-ups. So I need to gain mobility in my body to do this strike, and in particular mobility in the shoulders and the rib cage. You see, most of us think we've only got 3 joints in the arm. You've got the shoulder, you've got the elbow, and you've got the wrist. But I'm trying to create 4 joints in the arm. So where is my 4th joint? Well, my 4th joint is the rib cage. I'm trying to move the rib cage, and I'm moving it around the midpoint of my spine, about the solar plexus level. So there I was rolling the shoulders, but rolling the rib cage in the shoulder. Now I'm rolling the rib cage in the shoulder and also turning the shoulder. I'm starting to create a rotation in the shoulder, and you can see this is starting to create waves down the arm. So what I'm trying to do is feel the internal movement, and so this is one of the 5 levels that we've got to get. One of the 5 levels is the correct kinetic chain, the correct flow through the body, and it's important. The sequence has to happen correctly. It's like a whip. If you throw a whip, you'll see a wave start at one end and it moves down to the other end. If you interrupt the whip anywhere along its flow, you lose all the power. The flow must be uninterrupted, and here you can see me doing now an arm swing exercise, and I've done another video on this. You can see Conor McGregor doing this, but I call this snake arms. Very powerful arm flow exercise, and I'm trying to feel the movement from my rib cage through my shoulder to my elbow to my wrist and right out to the tips of my fingers, and I'm trying to use the whole spine to generate that movement. So this is the beginning of the kinetic chain, and we need this kinetic chain to flow out this overhand cross. And now I'm doing big circles, simultaneous rotations, but here I'm trying to use the spine. The spine also has got to come into play. So I'm arching the spine and rolling the rib cage with the shoulder, and I'm starting to synchronize the breathing, inhaling and exhaling, and I'm breathing deep into the rib cage. And breathing is another one of these 5 aspects to the punch. The expansion and the contraction of the rib cage adds a motion, it adds a movement. It's not an esoteric thing. You're not breathing just to add force because it's it'll add power and breathing. No, breathing is actually mechanical. The expansion of the rib cage and the contraction of the rib cage as you inhale and exhale can add power to the punch. So now we're starting to put these things together. You can see the flow, and you're rolling the shoulder in a figure of 8. So you can see I'll come up and do the roll of the shoulder, drop the arm down and pull it back in a figure of 8 position. And now you can see the next level, I'm also moving forward and backwards. So one of the things you get in this punch is your whole body momentum. Your body moves back and your body moves forward. So you've got your entire weight behind the punch. So this is the third aspect of these 5 things we need. Your body weight is moving forward. The second one you've got is the kinetic chain must be in the right flow. The third one, you add the breathing, the expansion and contraction of the rib cage to the flow. So here you see inhale as the arm is back, exhale as the arm goes down. Inhale as you stretch back, then you open up the rib cage, and exhale as I go forward. So I'm trying to add these things together, and I'm creating a flow. You've got to feel this. So it's about efficiency and technique. And one of the secrets is don't try for power. I'm actually not trying for power. I'm never really punching to maximum power, mostly only up to 50%. Now, together with this backwards and forwards movement, I've also got a twisting movement. So now I'm shifting my weight forward and back and feeling a twist from the back hip. And I'm trying to feel a push from the back leg through the hip, through the spine, and moving that forward into the strike. And now we're getting towards something more complex. Now this is the fourth aspect. This is elastic recoil. And I'm going to talk a lot about elastic recoil in time. But imagine now here I'm holding my fist behind. I'm holding onto a branch of a tree. So I can't move my fist, but I'm trying to punch. So I'm trying to drive my weight forward. I'm trying to twist my weight forward, but my hand is stuck behind. So I'm creating a powerful stretch from my hips, through my spine, through my rib cage, through my arm to my fist. I can feel a stretch through my body. And then I suddenly let go of that stretch, and that throws the punch out. I'm creating elastic recoil through my whole body, a stretch, and the stretch is the same stretch you need for the kinetic chain. So this is now the fourth aspect to these five things, an elastic recoil. So I'm trying to feel this elastic recoil as I go through the movement of the punch. So my body weight is going forward. I'm twisting my hips and my spine as I go forward. I'm rolling the entire arm with four joints, i.e. I'm including the rib cage, and now I'm adding elastic recoil. I'm trying to create a resistance or a drag to it. And now we've got the fifth aspect, and the fifth aspect is gravity. Gravity is also a ballistic strike. We're using gravity. The gravity means that the strike is falling downwards. Hence it's called the overhand cross. I've got to lift it up and over and drop it slightly down. So I've got to create a little jump. I'm jumping up and using that jump to throw my arm up. So the jump has got to be in sequence. Jumping up, that throws my rib cage up, which throws my shoulder up, and then I'm trying to guide that throw into a roll forward and into the overhand cross. So now we've got all five aspects of the punch, and we're trying to link these five aspects together in just the right way, because if you don't get the sequence right, if you don't get the flow right, you lose the power. You see, it's got to be uninterrupted. Remember the whip. If you interrupt the whip, the power is all lost. So it's a build-up, and the build-up of a whip is slow. It starts off slow and speeds up. So the final end point of the punch is very fast. The beginning point of the punch, when winding up, is actually quite slow. There's an acceleration to the movement. And you can see here now the full movement. Inhale on the way back as I wind up and stretch up, build the elastic recoil. And exhale as I release the punch out into this figure of eight. It goes across my body and downwards. Now there's a lot of risk here when you starting to go harder and faster, because you can lock out your elbow and jar your elbow. You can jar your shoulder. You can jar your wrist. You can really, really hurt yourself. So you never go for full power. You've got to do this very slowly, very carefully. And again, this is just what I do. So I don't suggest you copy me. If you copy me, you do so at your own risk. Think very carefully and try very slowly before you do this. But here again, you're just seeing the whole thing. I'm trying to put all five aspects together. My body weight is moving forward. I'm twisting my hips and generating a kinetic chain through the spine, through four joints in the arm, the rib cage, shoulder, elbow and wrist. I'm twisting the wrist so that the fist is turning over as I strike, and I'm also jumping up and sinking down, so I'm adding gravity. And this little exercise here I always do afterwards to release the shoulders in the opposite direction, arching back, so I'm projecting the hips, opening up the rib cage. I'm keeping the belly pulled in tight to counteract the rib cage, the arch back, and I'm trying to stretch up, release the shoulders, release the spine, and look up, and so I make sure there's no residual tension. Again, this exercising is very powerful. You generate a lot of force, and you can seriously hurt yourself. So this is work, but I'm working on technique and efficiency, not power. And this is key. You see, we try and generate power by going harder and harder. No, you've got to improve technique, not power. Let go of trying to get power and try and make the perfect punch. You will see, the better the technique, the more power will come, and you'll just notice it. Oh, that was powerful. What happened? You got the technique right. So I am trying trying to work technique. I'm trying to create the perfect punch. Remember, this body efficiency training that I do, I'm trying to find the most efficient ways of using our body and using it in all different ways. So here, this is martial arts, but in martial arts I'm boiling it down to the very simplest basic things. So the very simplest basic thing is, well, what is the most powerful punch our body can generate? It's not the fastest. I'm going to do another video on the fastest punch, and we'll come to that. So do like and subscribe and put notifications, because I'm going to do very soon a video on the fastest punch. This overhand cross is probably the slowest punch. That's why you've got to follow it along. It's never a first punch. You usually lead with a jab and then follow it with the overhand cross. But here you can see I'm just trying to put it together, and now you see I'm doing random punches, so they're not perfect. But I'm getting the same mechanics. By practicing the mechanics of the perfect punch, you can apply that to the randomness of actual combat. And it's important to understand this. For martial artists, we need to understand, well, what is the most powerful punch we could generate, and we ought to do that. Now here you can see me hitting the bag in slow motion. Now try to see the sequential movement. You see my hips move first. My hips go forward and start to turn. They turn, and then the spine turns, then the rib cage turns, and then I throw the arm out. And the closest thing to this, I call this, is throwing the javelin. I'm actually throwing a javelin. But what is the javelin? The javelin is my forearm. So I'm going to lift the javelin up and over and throw it down and hit with the front two knuckles. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this little video, and look forward to seeing you in the next one.